May we have a huge round of applause for Pete Ceglinsky, CEO of Seabin. He's going to be talking about the next in water. Pete's company, to just give a brief to everyone, has developed a literal translation of what a sea bin is. So he's come up with a technology that clears out garbage from rivers and oceans. So Pete will now, of course, present that for the first time through an Indian podium to the world as well. Pete, may I request you to please join us on stage for the keynote presentation on Next in Water.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for having me. My apologies, my voice is not as sexy as normal. I lost my voice on the plane, but I'll do my best. It's the husky voice. So, Seabin, we're here to discuss microplastics, plastic pollution, problems, solutions, the future of water. But the problem of microplastics and plastic pollution is not just a visual or environmental problem. The problem of plastic pollution is that it is inside all of us. So microplastics in our brains, in our hearts, in breast milk, placenta, human testicles. It's plastic pollution, the microplastics in our arteries. There's two problems. One is a chemical. So chemicals are leaking from plastics directly into our bodies. But the second problem, which is the scariest, is that microplastics in our bloodstream and in our arteries are tiny. So the inflammation caused by microplastics is causing stress, it's causing cancer, it's causing a lot of health problems, for lack of a better word. So this is a bit more of a morbid start to the talk. It does get better. So here we go. So Seabin started from the very lateral thought of if we have rubbish bins in the water, if we have rubbish bins on land, why not put them in the water? So we operate in Sydney, Australia. We have a fleet of rubbish bins that we put in the water. They filter 481 million litres of water per year, capturing microplastics, bottles, all sorts of stuff. We created a lab. We employ scientists to analyse the data of what we do. This is Talia, one of the marine scientists. This is a close-up of the microplastics, the stuff that is in our bloodstream, the stuff that's in our food, stuff that's in our water. Microfibers, we're capturing plastics down to 1 millimetre or less by filtering the water. So this is the before shot of one of the sea bins that is in the water. You can't really see it. This is 29 minutes later. You can see the effect of what the sea bin has done. This is the debris that it's captured. I put this debris on my front lawn and I went through it. It took me a couple of months. And this was the plastics that was included in the debris. And so this was impressive, but for us, Seabin technology is not a solution for high volumes. So we're capturing 20 kilos, 40 kilos microplastics. We cannot deploy this technology in a river or a lake or anywhere with high volume of plastic pollution. So the way that we do this is we deploy 24 units across Sydney Harbour, which are serviced daily. We've created employment with full-time employment with environmental technicians. We filter 9.3 billion litres of seawater every year for microplastics and plastic pollution. Everything that we do, we capture the data on. How many microplastics, how many plastic straws, how many bottles. And we do that in our lab in Darling Harbour, which is in central Sydney. Every year, we publish summarised impact reports because we believe in sharing our data. When we first started Seabin, we realised that there was silos of data where there wasn't much sharing. We use social media to amplify the impact of what we have, of what we're doing. And this is helping because currently this is a voluntary private market. And so we need to create the buzz on social media for marketing, ESG, CSR campaigns for companies that have this as a mandate. The last one we do is we work for systemic change. So not so much cleaning up, not so much the data, but utilising the data to support policy, create legislation, enforce, monitor, this type of thing, which is the real solution to plastic pollution. The next things for us is computer vision, so using labelling, machine learning, going into AI to optimize a data system that we've created just to take away the manual data entry, the analysing, increasing accuracy, removing error, this type of thing, and making it more accessible for our clients and the public. The next thing for us as well is to focus on our data program. So we haven't really told anyone. It's quite clear that CBN uses technology and hardware to clean up, but the data system, we believe, is the one that has the most power. This is the power that can make the change that we all want to see. So systemic change using the super data, and then environmental consulting. For us, we have a lot of learnings of what we do. We've operated in Los Angeles. We scaled into 53 countries between 2018 and 2020. And then we found that it wasn't a very sustainable model. We needed to build profitability into what we do. And the profitability of repairing nature is the biggest challenge that we've ever faced as a company. And it's the biggest challenge that any other startup in the world is facing, because generally fixing nature is related to charities, not-for-profits, and something that should be done for free. So the biggest challenge that we have is creating profitability and a commercial business model to fix nature. So from all of this, the biggest learnings that we have is that data is king. We have a lot of criticism of how come you guys aren't just cleaning up? Why are you worrying about data? This is not real things. But decision makers will not make a decision without data if they're using taxpayers' funds. Academics, research, science, all of this is related on data. And we found that if we want to work with the government, local, state or federal, then we need to prove what we're doing with hard data. So some of the insights that we have is that with every 1 millimetre increase in rain, the amount of microplastics captured in Sydney Harbour increases by an estimated 27%. This is information, this is data that nowhere in the world else has. We found that there was a global data gap on microplastics and plastic pollution upstream. This is an example of one of the impact reports that we provide to our clients, itemising how much was captured, how many litres of water was filtered, all sorts of stuff. We created a pollution index to understand what the quality of the water is like in different locations. We have 24 categories at the moment. Microplastics is number one. Microplastics, I believe, is going to be one of the biggest threats that we have to humankind, which will possibly surpass climate, because microplastics, again, is in all of us. This is a health problem. We also do brand audits, so we know what the most common brands are. So Cadbury, Coca-Cola's, Mars bars, Pepsi's, Unilever, this type of thing. Right now, we're in a linear economy, which means we have a product and it goes to waste, which is not ideal. It also represents opportunity. So at the moment, the world is working towards a circular economy. So we're working on raw materials at getting better. Eco-design, we're working on the production to make things better, more efficient. Distribution, consumption, that's the easy one. Disposal, this comes into a bit more of a grey area, recycling. There is not enough recycling because we have a problem. Disposal, recycling, and in the middle, what we found is a problem where in Australia, 130,000 tonnes of waste leaks into the water every year, into the environment. So we started with a simple goal of only cleaning up. We thought that was going to be the solution, but then we started to get a little bit smarter. The impact that we've had in Sydney from 2020 is that more than 30 billion litres of water have been filtered for microplastics and marine litter. We've removed more than 22 million plastic items. We've removed more than 11 million microplastics from the harbour, and 50% of the data collected has been microplastics. It's actually 55% now. And so what we've ended up with is a very sophisticated, well, semi-sophisticated systemic change model. So we start with, we need revenue, we need money to operate, we clean up, we create scientific methodologies, we use the project data for education, prevention, which supports legislation, better practices, which leads to reductions. And we support government policies like plastic bans. So an example of a financial risk related to banning a plastic bag, for example, we saw that there was a 71% reduction after the bans in Sydney Harbour. And then we saw the article about Coles, which is a supermarket selling plastic bags. So it's 15 cents for every shopping bag. There's 230 million plastic bags sold every year. They're 15 cents each. So the supermarkets are missing $34.5 million every year because their products end up in the environment. So the nature is actually worth $58 trillion, which is 55% of the world's GDP, which is reliant on nature. The TNFD, if anyone does not know this, you should Google it. This is the Task Force for Nature-Related Financial Disclosures, which is driving the framework and the systems for, I'm sorry. Here goes my voice again, getting sexier. So, there is a new nature biodiversity market which is emerging. And so this is a little bit complicated to look at, but this is a carbon market timeline. So we've had 20 years of a voluntary market. This is the first year in Australia where mandatory reporting for climate has kicked in. So anyone over 500 employees, you have to report on your footprint. The next year is Group 2, 250 employees, and then the next year is 100 employees. And so this means that there is investment being put into solutions to help fix this. And so the TCFD have built this, and now the TNFD are building the nature biodiversity market. And so this is a possible timeline. And so we're going to see in 2030, well, we think we're going to see in 2030 or 2031, mandatory reporting for nature will kick in for 500 or more employees, Group 2, Group 3, and so on. And so what we're going to start to see is we're in a private voluntary market at the moment for fixing nature. And in 8 years, we're going to have a mandatory market, which means profitability, commercial opportunities, scientific methodologies, frameworks and guidance. So an example of mandatory reporting, a vertical could be a snack bar, a Mars wrapper. So let's say 10 million items are produced every year. Where are we? 2 million items are recycled every year. That means 8 million items are mismanaged, which means it's leaked into the environment. And something like this will be accountable for mandatory. I was asked to comment on the Yamuna River issue, but I do not have the academic, the research, the knowledge, the skills. I don't have enough information to provide an educated opinion. But what I do know is that the Yamuna River, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, is one of 1,000 rivers where plastic waste is a huge problem. And it's because the rivers are not treated as assets. Plastic waste is not treated as a valuable resource. There is there's inadequate waste management, lack of recycling, recycling technologies, not enough financial initiative to collect the waste, or cultural and religious aspects. And this is a common problem for 1,000 different locations. And so as a suggested approach, not for here, but as a blanket approach, is that one, extended producer responsibility is going to play a key role in fixing nature. If you produce something that creates waste, you should be able to manage it and bring it back, become circular. A pay-to-play strategy. Reductions, this is prevention. You need to turn off the tap to the bath before you start cleaning up. You still need removal, the cleanup, but you need to do all of this at the same time. And so the things that are really missing are extended producer responsibilities and doing everything all at once. You cannot choose to do cleanup, and you cannot just do reductions. You need to do both at the same time in parallel. Example of this, we'll choose soft plastics. So the government introduces an extended producer responsibility legislation. You create a public-private partnership, a PPP. This has been mentioned quite a few times today. I think this is the way of the future. The producer invests in recycling facilities if none are available. The producer, not the government. These are the people that are producing products that create the waste, that create the problem. The producer finally financially incentivises the waste pickers. You need to bring the waste back to the facilities before you can recycle it. Shared economic benefits and health benefits. So this is just an example that we created that we think can be the foundations, the start of an opportunity. There is devil in the detail. There is no detail in this. This is the moonshot. Social and environmental benefits. I forgot to click the button. Sorry. So, if you start looking around on LinkedIn, start looking around on the news, you'll start to see a lot of amazing progress on nature capital. So 58 trillion, that was the value on nature. BlackRock moving on natural capital, playing the long term, playing the long game. Plastic taxes, 435 million euros per year on single-use plastics alone in Germany is kicking off. I think it's this year. The rights of nature, this is absolutely amazing. Need to research that. Debt swaps for climate or nature. These are funding and financial mechanisms that can really fix the problem of plastic pollution. And then finally, investing in natural capital for eradicating extreme poverty, boosting shared prosperity. So things are moving, not moving fast enough. My time is up, but this is the last slide. So, to leave on this, we need to be bold. We need to make big, harsh decisions. Some people might not like the decisions, but you need to play the long game. You cannot think of a short-term future. You need to think of the long game, because fortune favours the brave. So thank you.